Hey guys, all right, we've promised this for several months and it's finally the day. This is my best friend Alan, and he's gonna show us what we need to know to can our tomatoes to preserve, to have throughout the winter. So we've known each other for 36 years?
Yeah, since I was 6 years old, moved to California.
Crazy. During that time, I would say probably when I was 13 is when we got into gardening together because of one thing.
Dahlias.
Dahlias.
Yep.
And I think because at that time, you're not going to get a lot of 13-year-old boys into gardening. They're so big.
Yes.
And they've got such a wide range of designs.
Amazing flower.
And we competed. I think that was the big thing.
That's
right. Not against each other, maybe, but at the fair. But that was fun. That was fun. Plus we got prize money. You know, that helps for kids. Your son, Kylan, is actually a gardener now, much more than Noah. But not only that, he is a beekeeper, yes, which runs way back in your family, right?
Yeah, my grandfather taught me how to do bees. So it's Kylan's great-grandfather.
And now he's not only just keeping bees, because you've got an orchard, he has his own YouTube channel. What's it called?
Foothill Beekeeping.
Foothill Beekeeping. So he's 13. If you guys want to go check that out, he knows more about bees than like I could ever process.
He's having a lot of fun with it, learning and trying to share what he learns.
And he's good. I watched his very first video and it was way better than my very first video. We're actually going to go to your house pretty soon, yeah, because it's almost honey time. And so we're going to take a look at the bees and learn everything Kylan knows and harvest some honey. Yeah, which will be fun. I've never done that. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell icon. So I know nothing about canning. My grandparents did it ever since I was born and way before that, I'm sure. In fact, my jars are their old jars. So, cool. So that's kind of cool. But Alan's going to teach us what he knows. And so we're going to just go through hot and cold, what's it called?
Canning, hot and cold processing.
Okay, because there's two different types of things that need different things. So you want to make sure that you do the right one so that you don't get sick.
Yeah.
So tell us kind of about the hot and cold and what it's good for.
Sure. So like you said, I mean, people have been canning forever, and there's a variety of different ways that people can, but essentially you can either do hot or cold processing. I think we're going to do cold processing today, right? But that's essentially if you're making like a salsa or tomato sauce or spaghetti sauce or something like that, where you're boiling it beforehand and you want to put that as a hot liquid into a jar. That's hot processing. Cold is what we're doing, where we have cold raw tomatoes and we're just putting those in, and then we'll process them in the pressure canner afterwards. Essentially, you're doing the same thing. The difference is you want to make sure that your jars are sanitized. So that can be like what we did, where we boiled them in the water beforehand, or you can just put them in the dishwasher. Just make sure they're nice and clean. If you're doing hot processing, you want to keep the jars hot. So boiling them in the water beforehand, pulling them out while they're still hot. That way when you put the hot liquid in, you don't crack the cold jar. And that's really the biggest difference.
Okay. And then when those go into the jars and they're sealed and go back in the hot water, that's what sterilizes everything in the jar.
And processes it. And we're going to process it under pressure. That shortens the time, raises the temperature of it. And that's what sanitizes the jars, but also is what keeps the tomatoes preserved, fresh, and safe to eat.
Do you need a pressure canner for this?
The way we're going to do it with tomatoes, because we're going to add citric acid, because they're not acidic enough. I know tomatoes are pretty acidic, but we want to add that, and then we want to bring the temperature above 212 degrees. So if you're just boiling them in water without pressure, the internal temperature is only going to reach what water boils at. By putting it under pressure, you raise the temperature of that, and so you kill any bacteria that's in the tomatoes because the temperature is higher.
Okay. I think I got all that. But he's an engineer. I'm just a YouTuber and artist.
Like I said, there's lots of ways people do things, but this is sort of what we're following, what the manufacturer recommends.
Okay, and that's great. That's always the safe thing to do. If you guys have been canning for decades, anybody out there that you have some different ways or you want to share something, leave them down below in the comments. Okay, so we have our jars cleaned, warmed, they're sterile. And then I've got my bag of tomatoes. that last Tuesday, I peeled them and then put them in the freezer. You can go back and watch that video. I'll link it down below. So we're gonna do the first jar whole tomatoes, right?
Okay.
And so basically, do we just dump it in?
Yeah, so
water and all?
Yeah,
or
you don't want to add too much extra water. I mean, some people actually can with water and they add boiling water. What we're going to do is just take your fresh tomatoes, fresh frozen, and just pick them out by hand and put them in there. You want to just make sure we get them kind of packed in there, and then we can remove some air bubbles.
So I just reach in and, okay.
And we also want to add some citric acid though.
As you go, or?
Yeah, you can just put a couple in, we'll add this in, and we'll kind of make sure and get it stirred around a little bit. Just helps to preserve it so that it lasts a little bit longer in the jars.
How long do they last?
You know, some people you will hear, they said, oh, I've 5-6 years. What they recommend is to use them within a year. I wouldn't.
When my grandparents passed away, they had some from like the 90s.
And they were probably great if you were brave enough to test them.
We weren't. What is this? Is this made for canning?
Yeah, so it's just a funnel that what it does is you want to kind of protect the rim of the jar, because when you put the lid on, it needs to make a good seal. So that just keeps tomato juice and stuff from getting on the edge. And then we'll wipe it down real good, but it just makes it easier to put the tomatoes in.
And where do you get this?
From Amazon.
Okay, I'll link all the things that we're using that are from Amazon down below, so it's easy for everybody. Okay, so then we just start putting them in.
Start putting them in. I'll measure out some citric acid and add that in as you go.
Do I squeeze the juice out, or just?
You want some of the juice. So these are quart jars, so I'm going to add half of a teaspoon of citric acid. I'm just going to pour that in there, and once we process it in the canner, it'll get all mixed around and everything.
Because it like boils and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I might get a jar full out of this bag.
It's amazing how many tomatoes it takes.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and kind of push them in there, pack them down. So you want to leave about a 1/2 inch of what they call headspace, or just room at the top. You don't want to fill it up completely.
Okay.
Because when we put it in the pressure cooker, we want it to be able to expand a little bit. We don't want it to escape out. You can use a tool like this. This has a little magnet on one end we can use to fish out the lids from the pressure cooker, like when we're sanitizing them. But then you can also get in here, and what this does is you just get some of the air bubbles. See all the air bubbles in there?
Let's hold this up and you can see it.
So you want to just...
Oh yeah, and the air bubbles.
Yeah, get in there, get the air bubbles out. Make sure everything's in there settled. Kind of just poke it around a little bit until you see most of those air bubbles out. And then at that point, you can see our funnel protected the edge. Otherwise, we'd have tomato juice and pieces all over. So we'll just take this out. And we got our good,
look at that,
nice 1/2 inch or so of space. And we'll put the lid on, and we'll go put it in the pressure cooker.
Okay.
So we want to just wipe off the rim there, because what we're going to do is, you see these lids, and they have a kind of a sealant on them. We want to check that, make sure there's no cracks or bumps or dents. Always use kind of a fresh one, and then it makes a good contact.
Is that glue or is that rubber?
It's kind of like a rubber material. It's not glue, but what it does is when we're done pressure cooking, it'll cool and it'll create a vacuum. And so this is what seals that vacuum in. And we'll test that when we're done to make sure. And so you've seen kind of where they pop up, they have that little pop noise. That's how you know that it's still under vacuum and that it's still
if it's not able to pop.
Right, if it's down in there when you're done cooking it. So we'll just put that on, and then we slide these on, and we just do it, we call it kind of hand tight. We don't want to crank it down, because when we put it in the pressure cooker, it's going to expand, and the air in here is actually going to escape.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to prevent that from happening. So just get it in there, hand tight, and then we'll put it in there, and then when we're done, we'll show you it'll actually be on there with the vacuum.
So you don't have to tighten it anymore, it's just going to do it.
Yep.
Okay. So we want to drain the water out of here?
Yeah, you want to probably get the extra water out.
Okay. All right, so we've drained them, and we're just going to dump them into the food processor.
Fill it up. I still want to add the citric acid in there, We'll just pour that on top.
And we don't have to stir it because it's going to mix up in the
thing.
thing.
You can if you want, but it'll get mixed up in there.
Okay. Take out the funnel.
Take out the funnel. And just make sure, because I can see you're pretty clean. The jar is clean. And we'll put that on there. And again, just hand tighten it. And it's ready to go. Okay, so we got our jars ready to go. We're putting them in just lukewarm water. We haven't started boiling it yet. You don't want to put cold jars into hot water or they'll crack. So what we'll do is we'll put them in here and then we'll start the fire and get the water boiling and let them all heat up together. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left of our 22-minute time, and so we're just slightly over our 11 pounds that we're trying to go for here. So we adjust the pressure based on the temperature. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit. It's important, don't just set it and walk away, right? You want to keep an eye on it because, again, the temperature will fluctuate and then the pressure will fluctuate. So you just kind of keep adjusting it a little bit. And so right now, with 11 pounds of pressure at about sea level, which is where we're at, the temperature is about 250 degrees. So it will it'll cook faster. Again, it's a higher temperature, so it kills any bacteria. But it's important if you're at higher altitudes. You have to adjust the timing for how long it goes. So it's about 5 minutes you add for every 3,000 feet of elevation you're at.
Okay. So what we have probably another, I think, what'd you say, 10 minutes?
About 10 more minutes left.
Okay. We'll come back in 10 minutes and we have to let it cool though, right?
Yeah.
How long does it take to cool down?
10 minutes or so to cool before that pressure goes out of there.
So about 20 minutes,
yeah.
We'll be back.
Okay, so now our pressure is at 0 and the little safety button's down, so we know that there's no pressure in here and we can open it up. It's still really hot though, so you want to be careful.
Okay, so we have 2 jars of actual tomato stuff. Do you want to tell everyone why we have the 3 empty jars?
Yeah, we just put 3 empties in there because as they're boiling around, they're kind of moving and we don't want them to flip over. So it's just to kind of fill up space. Pull that out carefully. It's really hot, so we just want to let it sit there, but look how good that looks. So it's kind of hard to see, but you can see there's a little button. And if you push it, it's on there. This one over here hasn't cooled down enough yet. So you see it still has that popping noise, where this one's in there. So it's got a good, nice vacuum seal.
And if it never gets that, then it's not right. Then it hasn't been done right.
So if the button doesn't go down, then all that means is you didn't get a good seal on the lid. The tomatoes are still good. They're not going to be shelf stable. You can't store them. So just put it in the refrigerator and enjoy that within a week or so.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I had no idea how many tomatoes it was going to take to do 1 jar
It takes a lot
of sauce. I need to get more tomatoes growing. But, I mean, ultimately, it's a great way to preserve and not use up freezer space, which is what I've always done in the past. Well, I hope you guys learned something out of this video. I know I did, and now I just have to get all the equipment to do this. I'll put the links down below of everything that Alan used here. And next Tuesday will be our last Tomato Tuesday of the year. And I'm going to be going through all the mistakes that you guys have shared with me that you made, some that I made, different experiments that didn't work. And I will see you guys on Friday. Bye. So we've known each other, what?
Since I was 6.
And how old are you now? How long has it been?
42.
So you do the math, because you're the math person.
Boy.
You're an engineer. You should come off a little bit faster.
Well, that's embarrassing.
So I'm going to dig out the last chunk and put it in, and then you say that again.
It's so tasty. So I think you're good here, and then you can use this is a.
Okay, so we've drained them. We're just going to dump them in. Okay, we drained them. I got to make sure it's in the view. That's good. Okay, so now we've drained it. Here it goes.
I feel like we've drained them 5 or 6 times.
Oh. Blooper!
Scoop it back in. It's gonna process.
Well, that was fun. It was fun. It wasn't very productive.
4 hours for 2 cans of tomatoes, I'd say. We're doing well.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. They should be good on the shelf for about a year. Did you get that out of your eyes?
Say that again. Because as you were started talking, I was looking like bored and I was thinking. So, so tomato mistakes we don't want to make again next year.
I got a couple canning mistakes to throw in there.
So thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Oh yeah, I'm a thank you.